Yesterday, the Cabinet took a most magnanimous position to act in the best interests of the people of Antigua and Barbuda, to put the public good ahead of political self-preservation, and at the same time to act courageously, to act with strength and resilience. I've said to my colleagues that we must be courageous enough to make the decisions that are in the best interests of the people, which we did yesterday. But obviously there are some who will challenge the mandates, and we must be strong enough to stand by those mandates and at the same time be resilient in order to recover from any missteps. But I say here to the entire population, to all citizens and residents, to all of the well-thinking persons of Antigua and Barbuda, that we must work collectively in what I consider to be a form of pertinacious resistance against those who challenge these mandates. These mandates are designed to protect the entire population, to provide for a safe working environment for Antiguans and Barbudans, both citizens and residents, and to make sure that we can have an early and strong recovery. I believe that on the basis that these mandates are respected, that Antigua and Barbuda will be well on its way to achieve herd immunity before the end of the year. And that must become the objective of each citizen, each resident, to achieve herd immunity by year end. So by 2022, we could have a quick and strong recovery. A recovery in which we could put our people back to work to reduce or eliminate poverty, and at the same time to help our people to achieve their self-actualization goals. The reality is, during the last 18 months, there have been a significant amount of sufferings. People have been displaced, and individuals have been plunged into poverty. Our school children, they have not had a safe place in which to learn. As a consequence, we have seen educational regression in this country during the last 18 months. And so it is a very simple, intelligent choice to make. To get vaccinated in order to protect oneself, to manage the risk of hospitalization and death. Dr. Duncan indicated that 95% of the people who are hospitalized, that they are individuals who are not vaccinated. Unfortunately, we have at least 6 individuals on ventilators, and we all know that several of them will not make it off these ventilators. So I had asked a question at least a week ago as to how many people should die before we act. How much damage should be done to the country's economy before we galvanize the entire population to act together and to do so in the public interest. This is not a time for political one-upmanship. This is not a time for political opportunism. This is a time for leadership. Leadership by each citizen, each resident. The leadership responsibility to fight COVID is not the exclusive responsibility of the cabinet. It is the responsibility of each of us to play our part in fighting COVID by getting vaccinated. So when you get vaccinated, you're joining the fight against COVID so that we can achieve herd immunity as soon as possible to restore normalcy. And it is the intention of my administration, on the basis that we achieve herd immunity in the next few months, to, of course, eliminate the restrictions, maybe barring the wearing of masks if COVID remains a significant threat. But the state of emergency, the curfews, we want to get rid of them so that we could restore normalcy. We want to make sure that Antigua and Barbuda is a safe destination for guests, and we all know that we depend heavily on tourism. If we do not have a safe environment for tourists, then they will go elsewhere, and we know what the economic consequences will be. So if you think that vaccine mandates will force you to leave your jobs, well, guess what? Having an unsafe environment will result in a reduction in revenue, tourism revenues, and you will be forced out of your job because the government will not be able to pay you. The private sector entities that you work for will not be able to pay you. So take your pick. Get vaccinated and save your jobs, or if you wish to be irresponsible, then clearly you're putting your job at risk, you're putting lives and livelihoods at risk, and you're possibly putting your own life at risk. Now, we cannot be a selfish people and make a decision that because we're young and healthy, that we should not get vaccinated because the possibilities are that you may not necessarily get ill or die. This is a time in which each of us must take the vaccination in the public interest, in the public good, for the good of your family members, for the good of your children, and the broader society. And we expect nothing less from the people of Antigua and Barbuda. In fact, we are demanding a higher level of responsibility, a greater discipline within the society, and certainly greater empathy. We must be an empathetic people. In fact, those who are not vaccinated are contributing to the increase in deaths and certainly the increase in hospitalizations. As indicated, Mount St. John is literally now overflowing with COVID patients, and that is why we have now had to commission this third facility. Now, Sir Marlwin spoke about the history of establishing this facility in which we literally renovated and repurposed the former NTTC into this medical center. And whereas we will provide respiratory services here, it will be expanded to include 3 theaters because we want to make sure that individuals who travel to the island to provide these advanced surgeries, that they can do them right here. So a number of advanced medical services will be conducted at this medical center. And again, it shows the proactive leadership of my administration. We had resistance not only outside of the party, but even within the cabinet, we had resistance to convert this facility into a medical facility. And at that time, a firm decision had to be taken to convert it, notwithstanding the resistance by at least one individual. And I have to commend certainly the ministers who saw the vision, Minister Marlwin Joseph, Sir Marlwin Joseph, and certainly the Minister of Public Works, the Honorable Lennox Weston. And that is why we're here today. That is why we are actually ready to commission this facility. We have beds, we have facilities available. And my understanding is that we have ordered an oxygen facility here for this facility. We have more beds coming in. I believe there are about close to 10 beds arriving this week, another dozen next week. We have at least 50 more beds coming in within the next couple of weeks. We've already paid for all of the oxygen facilities. In fact, the director spoke about the fact that we have literally stockpiled PPEs, in which we have sufficient PPEs to last us for several months. That is the nature of the proactive leadership of my administration. You know, those who have no leadership responsibility, you know, they can afford to be critical, they can afford to put misinformation out there in the public, but we take our leadership responsibility very seriously. And that is why on every occasion we're able to come to the people and to demonstrate the things that we have done in tangible terms. Even prior to COVID, we would have gotten assistance from the People's Republic of China to construct 2 of the most impressive polyclinics anywhere in the Caribbean. So we now have one of the best medical architecture anywhere in the Caribbean. We are now up to about 3 beds per 1,000, when the average in the region is about 1 bed per 1,000. And I've said to my colleagues, there's no way that we're going to preside over a situation in which people are literally sleeping at the floor, on the floor at Mount St. John or in the hallways of Mount St. John. We said that we will provide the facilities so that every single person who contracts COVID, that he or she will be given adequate medical care and will have a chance of recovering. And I know that there are some out there promoting their propaganda, these anti-vaxxers. I want to take this opportunity to appeal to them again to cease and desist, because at the end of the day, you're doing a disservice to your country. I know many of them, they are attention seekers, they're looking noticement, they're looking notoriety, but this is not the time for it. This is a time in which each of us must commit ourselves to fighting this invisible enemy. The enemy is not Gaston Browne. The enemy is not Sir Marlwin Joseph. The enemy is not Dr. Duncan. The enemy is COVID. And that is where the fight has to be taken. And we must literally form ourselves into a mighty army of Antiguans and Barbudans to fight COVID. Nothing less will be required. And even those in the opposition, I expect them too to provide some level of leadership. And those irresponsible, let's say, those who are waiting to probably lead this country need to demonstrate at this point that they have the capacity to lead. Because at the end of the day, the people will not forget them when they stay on the fence, when they say to the people of Antigua and Barbuda that they support vaccinations, but they also support people making the choice of not getting vaccinated. Those are mutually exclusive decisions. And if you stand in the middle, then clearly you're not standing on the decision that our people should get vaccinated so that we can achieve herd immunity and restore normalcy. In essence, you're undermining the process by standing in the middle. So I want to issue a clarion call to Harold Lovell and his team to stand down and to exercise some leadership, to stand firmly in favor of vaccinations to achieve herd immunity. I've set a timeline, a national timeline for December 31st, 2021 to achieve herd immunity. And we expect nothing less but for all of them to come on board and to say to their membership in the United Progressive Party, to say to all Antiguans and Barbudans, all citizens, all residents, that they need to get vaccinated in the public interest. My final appeal is for every person who is unvaccinated to do so. And I want them to know that the measures that we have put in place, in which individuals who fail to vaccinate and or test, that after October 1st, that they will not be paid, we stand firmly on that decision. We're not trying to put anybody's employment at risk. We're not trying to undermine the income of anyone. But if you choose to take the course of not getting vaccinated or to test bi-monthly, then evidently you're the one who's making that decision to put your revenue or your salary and your wage at risk, not us. And we have to understand that when you make a decision, you suffer the consequences. So the consequences of not being paid, because clearly if you do not work, you cannot be paid. And we have taken a decision to keep the public spaces at Heritage Key, the airport, and to keep public offices safe by mandating that if you're not vaccinated, that you should get tested in the case of people who are exempted. And certainly those who can take the vaccinations, we expect them to do so in order to protect their jobs, to protect their family members, to protect the entire society. So again, we're not trying to be punitive. For us, it's really a leadership dilemma at this point that we have to literally force people to get vaccinated in their own interests. We'd wish not have to go that route, but the fact that individuals are holding out, it's not just about hesitancy. The interesting thing about it, is that whenever we take a decision, for example, to reduce the curfew or to expand it, people react accordingly. So if you say, for example, you're expanding the curfew to 6 o'clock tomorrow, by about 5:45, 99% of the cars off the road, 99-point-something% of the people off the road. But at the same time, those very people are trying to say that they don't have information about vaccinations. We know it's not true. Yes, there may be some who may be afraid, and we have to continue to use public awareness, public education to get those people vaccinated. But if we call a spade, we have a large cadre of people who are literally defiant. As far as they're concerned, they are not getting vaccinated. Some of them are politically motivated. And if those people are putting the country at risk, which they are, we have no choice but to introduce mandates. And I also want to signal here too that the mandates will not stop at what we agreed to yesterday. Because if we do not achieve herd immunity within, let's say, the next few months, then new mandates or additional mandates will be introduced. And again, this is not a political issue. This is about protecting our civilization. And again, we ask for the cooperation of all, and we encourage each Antiguan and Barbudan who is not vaccinated to do so in their personal interests, in the interests of their family members, including the children, and the national interests. Thank you sincerely.